What's the name of our show?
Godly Tissue.
Godly Tissues, no. Godly Tissues.
Oh, we didn't even think about the name.
Yeah, I know we didn't, did we? So here we are. To my right here is Dimitri Katzman.
And to my left is Mew Hopkins.
And we're very happy to be here this evening to describe to you our feelings on the movie The Reader, starring Kate Winslet and Ralph Fiennes. Made in 2008, Weinstein Company production, produced by Sidney Pollack. And God presented us with these holy tissues, and we are going to use them every chance we get here on God's Tears to, what are we going to use them for? We're going to use them every time an element of the movie makes us cry. Or we may need to wipe some orifice of our particular selves, given whatever the issue might be that we're having with the particular movie at hand. And it is out of 5 tissues, 10 in total between the both of us. And if on that rare occasion there are no tears in heaven, no tears of God, we will in fact rip a tissue up, and God will not have to cry any longer, because the movie is just that good. That's exactly what's going to be the case here. So let us begin the show right now. Well, this movie could otherwise be, I suppose, relabeled illiterate Nazi slut, potentially.
And pedophile.
And pedophile, too, you're right, actually, you're right, wow. They really covered all the bases in that one.
If it was done with a guy, it wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't. It would be a complete, it would be completely immoral, and I think everyone would get kind of disgusted and just turn the movie off. It does present itself as sort of a double standard, doesn't it? And I mean, I suppose it also is a movie that reproves the Milgram experiment as being a success, where people of maybe a limited intellect, or people who are not literate, are maybe more likely to take commands of people above them. There was an experiment done that someone in another room was given different levels of information relating to somebody being tortured in another room. And that was an experiment that proved that, you know, people would press a button and electrocute someone in another room. There was no other person in the room, but they described the result. But the person in authority kept saying, no, it's okay, you can keep going, you can keep going, you can keep going. And the people just kept pressing the button, and electrocuting some fictional abstract person in the other room. And so the question is, what kind of a mind would do that, and what kind of a mind would obey authority to that level? And this woman is definitely one of the ones that would have kept pressing the button. I think Kate Winslet really portrayed that working class, just do what you're told, keep your head down kind of mentality very well. And she deserved the Oscar. She did some excellent acting.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
It's just the premise of the movie itself. You have to question why somebody would want to. Why would the producers of the film and the distributors of the film want to perpetuate a movie where this person at the end of it all, you know, is sort of being scapegoated? You know, the dumbest person on the totem pole is the one that gets executed or gets, you know, thrown in prison for crimes against humanity.
But she herself admitted that she was like their supervisor. Why would she do that?
Because she was so ashamed of being illiterate, she would rather die than admit.
Or go to prison for 20 years.
Yeah, for the rest of her life.
I think it's a plot fallacy. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's very contrived. It really is. Even if it's on the level of a book or a film, it's still incredibly contrived that he doesn't tell the people in the law office what he knows about her illiteracy.
he doesn't tell. They don't check her writing, right? They could
They
take
don't.
that report.
They don't. They
Check
just
if-
they take her word for it, and exactly all they would have to do is see that she can't write, and he knows it. That's the one thing that really got me later on in the film. Why didn't he tell anyone what he knew? Did he hate her that much for leaving him?
I guess he was just ashamed to admit that he was doing something with her because now she's this Nazi criminal.
Right.
Like from his perspective, you could explain it, but from hers and from the judge's perspective, just check her writing.
Right.
Like trick her into writing something before she accused of it.
Absolutely, and that would have worked much better. But then you wouldn't have had this whole prolonged, sort of tortured, her being in jail for the rest of her life, like this poor illiterate creature, the lowest person on the totem pole, being scapegoated by the whole, all of Germany. Where I guess that was the idea, that there was some sympathetic creature being sort of incidentally trampled on in this scenario, but she wasn't innocent, really. I mean, I don't buy it. I don't buy the innocence, and I don't buy the attempt at this sort of facile attempt to create someone who we should be feeling sympathy for. It misses the point of the events of the Holocaust. It misses the point of World War II in general. Other than to just say, yeah, there were some incidental people that were also innocently imprisoned. You know, well, so what? Is my answer to that story and that narrative. So what?
And there is a lot of emotional manipulation.
There
in the
is.
movie. Throughout the whole movie, they don't have any scenes from the concentration camps. All we see is the result, right? And all we presented is the opportunity to feel sorry for her.
Yes. There is only one
Everyone
scene.
is just yelling at her, Nazi scum and all this stuff.
Yeah, she looks like a heroine rather than the persecutor. That
Pure
her she was.
manipulation, and they think they can get away with it because a few times they said, so what, if she was illiterate, that's her excuse?
Yeah, that's
It's
not an excuse.
enough,
It's
because
not
on
an
a
excuse.
subconscious level, you still feel sorry.
Now, you were mentioning earlier, though, about there was no footage of the concentration camp. Well, there was one scene of the concentration camp where the boy, when he's young, this is post-World War II, and he goes on a tour.
Oh, when he just sees the result.
Speaking of manipulation, now this is a controversial point in and of itself. That I mean, as artistic, if I was ever to be an artistic director and I saw this, I would say this is a very intentional choice being made here, to make the inside of the concentration camp walls blue, using a blue light to flood it with a blue tinge. Is, I think, it could be interpreted as slightly manipulative as well, to suggest that, I mean, were the walls not already covered in Zyklon B, which leaves a blue residue, it wasn't, I guess, blue enough the way that it was filmed. So what you're left with is the director amplifying the blue that wasn't maybe really there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was.
I didn't even know it's supposed to look blue.
Well, that's the thing, is that the idea of the residue, I mean, I don't know, maybe someone came along with a steam washer and washed the walls for all I know. But for me, having read things about the Holocaust and reading things about extermination camps, not to be confused with concentration camps, because not all concentration camps were extermination camps. But in this case, it was an extermination camp that he was in, and to make the walls blue is a very intentional decision, I think. So, I mean, if the walls...
How many people know that it's supposed to be blue?
Well, that's the thing. Nobody, but the directors certainly knew, and the producers certainly knew, and so it's an intentional decision at a certain point. And they washed it all out as blue. I just thought that was an interesting decision in general. But maybe that's just me looking
But
too
even
deep
that
into
scene, it didn't have her in the scene.
It did not. No, she
you
was
couldn't
separate
connect
from it.
her with the atrocity.
You're right.
She was just the result. What happened
Well,
after?
But that's what makes me wonder, though. Like, why would you want to have this intentionally sympathetic character? Is it just an attempt to see how sympathetic a character can be made of the situation at its most extreme? If you really wanted to find a sympathetic character in the middle of this, you could find one if you wanted to. Well, that's
working on a very.
That is the quintessential slug on a razor blade kind of premise. Yeah, the premise, it falls. It does. It falls to one side or the other, and it cuts itself in half, I think.
I think that they had, if they really wanted to present like a fair picture, they have to show her do those atrocities, like lock the people and watch them burn.
That is a very interesting point you made. Why did they decide not to show that? It's an excellent question. Because did they figure it was worse to leave it up to our minds to imagine? Because I think that it would have made the movie stronger, and it would have made it more whole. As we keep going back in time, why not go back one more time? You know,
and it would be harder to judge her.
So they ride a bicycle into town. Even the children know how to read the menu, but Hannah doesn't. Pretty sad. So Hannah wanders into a church and sits there, the same place where all the people died, inside of this church, and she's just sitting around staring at the walls like. She's basically like she's looking at the symbols, and she doesn't have a clue what the religion really means because she can't read. You know, she's just sitting there looking at the pretty pictures, looking at the statue of Jesus like some kind of moron, and without any context, you know, about what her religion or if any religion even means, what it means at all. She's just sitting there totally baffled. The children are singing. She's just sitting there watching.
Wasn't she crying in that scene?
She was crying.
They were singing.
I wonder if there was some regret when she was in that church. Some real regret
or was she
for
just
killing people in a church.
Music?
Well, that's the thing. Was she touched by the fact that maybe I killed people in this church and I don't even know how to read? The religion.
There is a lot of ambiguity with this whole guilt thing because she cries, then she admits to everything in court even though she wasn't in charge.
That's a sign of guilt. That's something you would do as if you felt guilty.
But then
it shows she has a conscience. Maybe does it show she has a conscience, or does it show that she's ashamed of her illiteracy? Right?
It's always ambiguous.
It is always ambiguous, isn't it? It's always riding that line. But to even ride that line as far as they do takes a lot of skill. It's a conscious ambiguity, I would say, just because of that point you made. I don't want to say that there was more than one screenwriter working on this or more than one perspective. I'd have to read the book to know how divided Hannah was as a character in the book. But the movie makes her kind of a little bit schizophrenic, a little bit, she'll, work in a concentration camp and be a horrible person. And then later she'll just want to be read to. And isn't she so innocent? Like it's this kind of this dissonance that's constantly being played with. She's innocent and she's a victim and she's a victimizer at the same time. She's all of the above, right?
They're explaining this cruelty by her ignorance, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like they want to say, if we're going to make everyone literate, such atrocities will not happen. But
yeah,
it's not actually true.
Exactly. No, you're right.
So what are you trying to say in this movie?
Well, that's what one of the characters says. I don't understand. Like, what is there to understand? What is there to understand? Tell me what. What is there to understand in the story? What is there to understand about the war that we need to know about? Why is this important? Why is it relevant? And there's no answer.
When you analyze what's being said in the movie, everything's ambiguous.
Yes.
But on a subconscious, visual level, all points to feeling sorry for her.
Yes.
And that's the real answer.
It's exactly right. The emotional content of the film, the musical selection, the romantic scenario, this almost attempt to make it a Nabokov sort of romance and seduction. It all points to sympathy for the devil, which is, in this case though, maybe is she the devil or is she just a scapegoat? Is she just some innocent dupe who got caught up in the Milgram experiment, just to keep doing what you're told, So she dies before her release, and you said that she committed suicide on top of a pile of books. So what, if she was the banana salesman, would she be killing herself on top of a pile of bananas? Or hang herself from a banana tree?
They just helped her to go higher.
They sure did. They took her all the way to
And
the
then
top.
she basically died kicking classic books.
Mm-hmm. Well,
It must mean something.
yeah, it's very symbolic. She was a reader, and she hung herself from the books. Yeah, that's pretty lame. That's almost on the nose kind of symbolism. It's a little too.
Maybe she
silly
just
for
maybe
words.
she realized that she's guilty only after she read all those books by herself, when she learned how to read,
Right.
and she actually read all those books.
She realized that maybe she realized the extent of how evil she was through reading some of those books. And
She saw herself in those evil characters.
could have been. Maybe that's it.
And that's also ambiguous. Did she hang herself because of the guilt, or because she was afraid of going out into this new world
Right.
that she missed for 20 years? Because I know it's a real issue
Yeah.
with people who get released from prisons. A lot
Yeah.
of them commit suicide.
I definitely recalled the Shawshank Redemption. You know,
Yeah.
Brooks was here. Well, he was also a librarian, and he cared about books. Okay, this is
that's
the
more
real
the reference.
the real message is if you or I ever end up going to jail, just stay the fuck away from books, okay? Because you'll end up killing yourself if you read too many of them
Exactly.
in prison. So just lay off the reading.
So the message of the reader: don't read.
Don't stay illiterate, and you'll be blameless for whatever you do. Yeah, right. You'll just be guiltless and blameless, and you can go on killing away the hours as much as you like. That's a horrible lesson. We need to come up with our answer now. We need to think how many tissues.
Okay, so one for inconsistent script, one tissue,
One tissue for the ambiguity. Yes.
2 tissues. What else?
The acting was good. There's no tissues for the acting. This is a no tissue set of performances.
Another tissue for horrible premise.
Yes, I agree. And the attempt to manipulate us in a way that is making us question our own sense of morality. There's a bonus in that. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of the point of the thing, though. I would say that you have every right to say it's a tissue for you. I don't think it's a tissue for me. I think it makes you think. The premise. The premise, it makes me wonder why they did it.
It's
But me
ambiguous,
wondering
but-
is value to me. Me wondering why is added value for me. Maybe it's just because, I mean, I also like to do screenwriting, and it just makes me think, you know. Wow, to be able to confound and to make me think about something in that way is it's a real skill.
But then when ambiguity has a purpose, and in the end it kind of wraps itself, right, and explains itself,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. But
Yeah.
when you have ambiguity that kind of leads you to a completely wrong direction, that's a minus.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of cancels itself out in a way, doesn't it? I think that because the music and the lighting were so manipulative in a way, to try
The
to
lighting and like what
it
examples?
achieved the effect that the movie was trying to achieve, and I think you have to look at a movie based on what was it trying to achieve, and did it achieve it?
Mhm.
I think that's a fair standard way of looking at a movie. I totally lifted that statement from Roger Ebert, R.I.P., because it was trying to show a sympathetic German person. And did it achieve that? I think it was trying to. I think the music it's well produced, and I can't criticize the production. But I think I'm going to have to go back to the premise, and I think I'm going to have to agree with you, actually, when I think about the premise again, because it's trying too hard to find a sympathetic character, when really, yeah, okay, there's maybe a
And they
sympathetic
could
character.
do it. That's the thing.
Yeah,
If it's a really masterful writer, he
Right.
could turn anything around, and you will feel like he's right.
turns poop
But
into
they-
gold. Yeah, right.
But they didn't succeed.
No. Well, I think that I can understand maybe why they tried to do it, but at the same time, I don't think they really did it. And I think it was just a very manipulative experiment to see if it could be done, even. I'm giving this 3 out of 5 tissues. I think for being intellectually dishonest, in just the whole premise of the story, there is an intellectual dishonesty going on here, and I don't want to reward it. It's an interesting production, but then again, I didn't give it a tissue for the overall production because it was a pleasant, masterful looking production. And so I'm not giving it for that, but for the dishonesty in which it's trying to somehow get points for, I don't want to give it those points. And I'm going to take a tissue for that. But I give this three holy tissues. 1, 2, 3.
And me too. 2, 3.
Well, it's a lot of tissues we just wasted.